back, everyone, to another episode of You and the Law, the podcast. I'm your host, Will Norman. I'm the attorney on the team. I have my co-hosts here, Jermaine Levy, my paralegal, and the person who designed the You and the Law material and the course that a lot of you have been enjoying. And, of course, Royce Johnson, another member of my firm, a recent law school graduate who heads up our judicial release projects. And today we have a special guest. Our guest is Eric Abraham. Eric is a client we were very proud to serve, and we were able to, really have incredible success for. Eric is a person who, and we'll get into his story and what brought us here, but he was sentenced to 25 years in prison when he was a young man. And, we'll get into his story further, but essentially what he decided to do was really what we say, spend the time, not waste the time, not just do the time, but he really spent his time. And he built a tremendous record of success. He developed himself into just a person of excellence and of high quality. And on the strength of his work and our ability as the firm to highlight his work and represent it to the court in a strong way, and we'll talk about some of what we did to really bring that home, we were able to secure release for Eric, and he was able to secure his release himself, 8 years early. And, we're going to talk about his story, his success, his triumph here, and, we'll get into some of the finer details. So welcome, Eric. Thank you very much for joining us today. I want to start by giving you an opportunity to tell a bit about your story that led to this case. So in a general way and hitting whatever points that you think are appropriate, what do you think brought you to, or what brought you to the point where you were looking at a sentence of 25 years?
It was basically my entire life was in and out of prison. From the time I was 13 years old, my life wasn't perfect, but it wasn't messed up. It was like a tipping point. The man who I thought was my father, up until that point, I found out he wasn't. And that just pushed me in the wrong direction. And I was upset with my mom. I didn't know how to express that until I was 13 years old. And the guy who I thought was my father, he was from Pittsburgh. And he still tried to play that role, but I felt as if he was just going to fade away into the background. And he still tried to keep tabs on me, but me not being able to really communicate in a productive manner, it just led to me doing a lot of things, lashing out, acting out, skipping school, and it created a cycle. And I ended up in and out of juvenile facilities until eventually adult facilities. And I thought that I almost had it right when I ended up beating my girlfriend at the time, who ended up having my child. And I had a job, and she got pregnant the first time, and I realized the job that I had wasn't gonna be enough to take care of a family. And so I was like, well, I gotta do something else about that. So I started pursuing school. I pursued college when I was in prison, because I had 2 adult numbers, and I didn't finish it. And so when I got out, I said, well, I'm gonna try to finish it. And being young, feeling like you're gonna miss out on certain things, I messed with a bunch of women, and some of that kind of led to that. I was messing with a woman that was older than me, and we lived together for a while, and she put me out, and I just felt like I was on the bottom. I accumulated debt. I got this real nice car I wanted. I had this real high insurance because I was young and the type of car I had, and it made me be impatient, and I acted out in ways that inevitably could have cost me the rest of my life. Then, I ended up having a baby, and that was the changing point. But by that time, I was incarcerated, and I was facing 25 years. And the only thing that I could think of was, I'm not going to see her grow up. She's not going to hear me. And I thought about what I went through, not having my dad there, and I didn't want that to be for my child. So that was one of my motivating factors, but not early on. Early on, I was focusing more on trying to get out there to her and her mom. And I lost the first appeal. because I just felt like it's not going to be my real. I'm not. Because I went in the courtroom in June of 2008, and I made a plea deal for 15 years. And in July, I want to say July 16th, 17th of 2008, I went back to court. My daughter wasn't even a month old, and that 15-year sentence was not that. He imposed a 25-year sentence.
Can I interrupt you here and ask you a question?
Yes.
So you had made a plea deal where you believed that the joint recommendation from the prosecutor and from the defense attorney to the judge were going to be for a 15-year sentence. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And the judge took that recommendation and said, thank you for the recommendation, but I think that the sentence needs to be much longer and imposed a sentence of 25 years. Is that fair to say?
That's exactly
That's
what
exactly
he said.
what happened.
Yes, he said that he didn't feel that was enough time because of my extensive criminal history. And it just was a blow. It was crippling.
So here you are, and let me just point to it a little bit. Here you are. I mean, it's got to be as much weight of the world on your shoulders as ever could be for anybody. You're looking down the barrel of 15 years, and you probably can't think that it could get much worse. And here it comes 25, right? Let me ask this question. Sorry about that, Larry. I'll have to edit that in post. Let me ask this question. How did you go from that? And Jermaine, maybe you could lead off here because you also served a 25-year sentence, so you were also looking down the barrel of this. You had some of the similar conditions. How did you decide to look? I would think facing down 25 years, you might think, forget it. I guess life is just over for me, and find any kind of bad conduct to get into or whatever destructive behavior, but instead you chose to go a different route. So take me through the thinking. How does that happen where so many people maybe get in here and they don't really make of themselves what obviously you were able to? Tell us about how that works, and maybe Eric, you could bring us through your story as well. So Jermaine, you want to lead us off there?
Okay. Yes. First, I'd like to say your story is amazing. I didn't know those components that as a 13-year-old man, we really face a lot, and I didn't realize it was so common. I was like, wow, at 13, it's a changing point. So we're going to touch that. But in my story, what saved my life, honestly, they gave me 25 years. What saved my life was I started reading law early. And I saw everybody winning. Not everybody. I saw so many winners that it gave me hope. Because when I first came in, I was on a total wrong track. Not in a bad way, but I was 27. I was like, 25 years. Like, no. So I came in with 20 first, and I didn't want to do 20. And I made a decision. It cost me 5 more years. And once I realized I couldn't get out, except when I say I made a decision, I tried to escape a couple more times. So the decision, when I realized that this is really it, I kept reading law and I kept seeing everybody winning. And I said, man, I'm going to try my hand. And the hunger to get back home as a man and as a father, it just drove me. And it gave me that light at the end of the tunnel. So when I got my 25 years, I didn't necessarily say life is over. I said the drive to go home begins. And I never let off. So it's a long story, and I'm not going to take over this man's shine because I'm happy he's here. I'm proud. Neighbor in prison. This was my neighbor. Like, boom, boom. He's the guy I walk out to see. And he was so, like, he's into school. He was so into college and education. I was like, man, you're different. But I paid him no attention. You see some good guys in prison. But I was thankful to be a part of it. So when he came to us, I said, Mr. Norman, this guy's not normal. He really is not the man that he was when he was convicted. And I would love to see if we could help him, but I know it's going to be hard. But with that said, I compliment you, Eric. It was an honor to help you, and you deserve it. So welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Jermaine, always a pleasure to hear your story. I'm always fascinated by the fact that I think that one of the keys to his victory was he didn't look at the 25 years. He kind of looked at today. what could he do today to try to positively affect his situation? And, he thought, Jermaine, I know because I've talked to him many occasions, he thought he was going to be able to get out. And it turns out he served every daggone day that they could possibly give him. But in so doing, in so committing himself to, doing the activity, the positive activity every day, and using all that time you have that you could waste and spending it on making himself better and making himself excellent, he has created, I think, a legacy that's going to be bigger than himself. So, Eric, I'm interested to hear your version of that story, right? So, you thought it was 15, bad enough. I can't even imagine looking at 15, let alone now you're at 25. Maybe you could talk to us about like what it was that put you on the right path. Was it just concentrating on doing the next day, or did you look at the big picture and say, I'm gonna really do a great job over this time? What was your thought pattern like, and how did that develop over time?
It wasn't no aha moment like in the beginning. It was just more so day by day trying to get through the days, because it felt like something died inside of me. And really, something did. Like the old me died, and it was me trying to be reborn. I felt like I was at a funeral. I remember going up to the cell. They took me off of the 9th floor and put me on the 10th floor. I was on my way to prison. And I was in that cell for probably like maybe a week before I left. And I cried and cried, and I had never cried like that.
How old are you at this time?
I was 26 years old. I just turned 26. My birthday was January 15th, 2008. And I got arrested February 6th, 2008. So I wasn't even 26 for a month. And when I got to the prison, like I said earlier, I ended up losing the appeal. I was going through things with my child's mother. It was hard on her. And I seen what was happening. And I ended up getting an altercation, and that ended up getting my security raised. And when my security got raised, I immersed myself in the things that you shouldn't do in prison. Like, I tried to take my mind away by drinking and smoking a lot of weed, and that wasn't getting it. I get on the phone, and I'm complaining about why I'm in there. And that was kind of like one of my wake-up calls. I got on the phone this one particular time, and my child's mother, she basically got on me. And she was like, you need to be worried about how you go get out there and take care of your family, not feeling sorry for yourself. And majority of the problems that we have in our lives are problems that we create. And if we create our problems, we can also tear our problems down. And that was probably the beginning. That was probably 2010 or something like that. And I still made some messed up choices. But life is about decisions, the decisions that you make. And you look at them, you study, you just don't make impulsive decisions. You try to think about these things before you do them. And it's people in prison, like you said, you see these guys, and some people, they pass through. It's just like a blur. And you see people who actually got it, like it's an it factor. It's because this person has a routine. They doing these things constantly, day in, day out. I seen him, what he did every day. We spoke briefly more towards the end when he was about to go home is when I had conversations with him. So for him to say that he seen me, yeah, I seen him too. I seen the people who was like that. And I felt my circumstances wasn't normal because it had to do with the people I surrounded myself with. Because I, well, you're different, you did this. I didn't see that way. I seen it as if the people that you want to be around, they're going to be doing the things that you're doing. So what you're doing is going to appear to be normal. When in reality, that's not how majority of people are. So it was other people that I knew that was in college, but some people that I got in college because I got it. And I told them, I said, well, you could probably use this in it to help you do these things. I saw higher education because that was an escape. And I knew that I wasn't going to be in there forever. I knew that I wanted my daughter to see certain things, but well, my mom did it. My dad can do it. Her mom has a master's degree. I said, well, I got to get my bachelor's degree. And now my daughter, she's learning to speak 2 languages. And I'm so proud of her. And just because you're in there doesn't necessarily mean you can't have an impact on your child. That was my factor, just driving me. And there was points where when I didn't go to school, because they'd tell you this, if you got over a certain amount of time that you can't get in certain programs, you got to be persistent in some of those things. And you got to know the right people. Being connected to the right people that's doing the right things will open up those doors. So for instance, if Jermaine was a porter for the case manager, I'm talking to Jermaine. I need to get on that victim awareness list, even though I know right now it's not the time for me to be on that. But I know down the road I'm gonna have to utilize this in order to help me get out of here. So those are some of the things that I ended up doing. Exercise was the big key. That's when I started running a lot. I ended up, I think I ran 10 miles. I wanted to see if I can do it. It was a challenge. But the exercise was so I wouldn't break mentally. Because if they would have let me out today or tomorrow, I wouldn't have been ready. I don't know what decisions I would have made. And when I got in my late 30s, this is when I went to 6 prisons when it was said and done. When I, that 17, that spanning that 17 and a half years. And when I got to the 6, I got in my late 30s, and I know I was about to turn 40. The reality really set in, like, you're about to be home in a minute. I knew that I was going to come home in my 40s. In the beginning, there was no light at the end of the tunnel. But some of the things that I was doing let me know, like, this is obtainable. And prayer was powerful. You know, I'm not a religious man, but I prayed. And I manifested some of the things towards me. And you got to believe these things. Before something can happen, you got to believe it. And those were some of the steps that I ended up taking. And I said that I had a midlife crisis when I turned 40 because my purpose when I was on the street, I was the man in my family. It's all women in my family. I'm the only man. And when they needed me, whether to carry something financially, I was the one that did that. And I thought about it. I said, how can I do that? And I've been in here so long. And I said, the reality, this is what happened. I said, you're still the man of your family, but that's not your purpose anymore. They made it with all these years without you. So you're not going to get out there and have to assume those responsibilities. It's about you and you getting your things together and then everything else to come together. And once that happened, it was just like things started clicking. I stayed busy. I stayed with jobs as far as I was a cook for a year. I did Braille. I tutored. Anything that I felt as if that would keep my mind occupied or I could help somebody else, I tried to immerse myself in that. And college was something like started that so long ago, and I was hungry. I wanted to finish that. So I tried my hardest. I ended up with like a 3.2, and I could have did better, but I still had other things on it that I was focusing on too. That was part of it, man.
So, obviously, you know, your story is harrowing. What I'm hearing is that, number one, stay busy, find a routine, get active, both physically and mentally, to start going in the right direction. Even if maybe you don't know exactly where it's going to end or what it's going to do for you, you have to first kind of build the quality of the time that you're spending to build the quality of yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
And it seems like through that, in somewhat enforced discipline, but self-imposed as well, that you were able to change the person who was there. And so maybe the person who was out was the person who should be in prison, but now the person in prison is the person who should be out. And when you started recognizing that as a mentality, now you gravitate even more towards things that can be a little bit more advanced instead of just being someone who's physically active and having a good routine in terms of programming. I want to get to programming next. You also started thinking of, how am I on the outside now? And I think that that's probably a big part of what made our judicial release packet so impressive. And I want to, now use that opportunity to pivot to Royce, the other member of our team. Royce recently graduated, not so recently, but is a graduate of Akron Law School. He'll be sitting for the bar here in February. And he is the first touch in all of the records and putting it together, compiling it for the judicial release packets. Many of you may not know, some judicial release motions are a paragraph of, maybe this person is eligible, could you please let him out? I don't really know why. What we want to do is we want to put together every single positive thing we can tell about this person, every letter that we can get in support that talks about the change that the person's been through, the hole that they leave in their absence, and the promise of their return. So Royce, if you could maybe take us through what you do in that process, and then in Eric's case, maybe what you found that was I mean, we were told by the judge that this is the most impressive judicial release packet he's ever seen. He's been on the bench for decades. And while I want to take a lot of credit for that because I think we did do a great job, the bricks to build that house were in what Eric did, the ways he spent his time. So, Royce, if you could take us through kind of how you look at these generally and what you saw in Eric's case that was, maybe such a standout application.
Okay, so one of the first things that we do when we get a judicial client is we send them our own personalized judicial release questionnaire. This also goes for our commutation application clients as well. So when we send that questionnaire in the mail, we wait for our response that walks us through. It gives you a little bit information about our case, about what we're looking at here and how we can begin to shape. We also ask that you gather letters of support, whether that be from family members, loved ones, and something about Eric's case. I remember when we just kept receiving more and more letters of support and people who were willing to advocate and waiting for you out here on the outside, which I think is a great bolster for your petition as well. So we got to ask for those letters of support. We also give you the opportunity to write the judge a letter yourself. This also gives you an opportunity to describe how your prison sentence has gone, how you have maybe grown mentally, physically, and what are your plans to move forward. I think all those are important to hear from the judge as well. An interesting point that we had implemented in this case here was we actually had Eric talk to the judge directly by making him a video, and we was able to put that on a drive, and I was able to take that to the courthouse and give that to the judge directly, which I thought was a nice touch that we came up with the idea here at the firm that, it's been 17 and a half years since this judge saw you before. Show him who you are today, and being able to put a face to a piece of paper and see that this is a real person that he's judging, this is a real human that he's talking about, and somebody who has grown tremendously. I think it was a nice piece that we actually added a specialized part in this special judicial for Eric. Something else that we then do is we get an institutional report. So that will include all of your prison conduct. That includes all of what programs you have been in, any tickets, if you've gotten in any trouble, what has your conduct been, and how have you been as a prisoner? I think that's important because, and I don't want to say this to discourage you, but if you have gotten a ticket or if you've gotten in trouble, that doesn't mean that you're completely ineligible. What we encourage you to do, as we said, we want to use your time wisely while here incarcerated, is that take advantage of those programs, take advantage of those courses, go to school if you can, stay out of trouble as much as you can. We know that the environment can be inducive and cause certain situations, but we ask that to be a model prisoner if you can to the best of your ability. So,
But, and not to cut in, but Eric, you told us that when you first started there, you weren't the perfect model inmate, right? So maybe you could tell us if that programming that you participated in, did that help you, turn around in a sense? Was it beneficial? I mean, obviously you had to first make the decision mentally, but even once you get that, you need tools to, do the work, right? So can you tell us maybe if any particular programming you thought was helpful, or if you were just doing the programming itself is helpful because you're just engaging your mind? Can you talk us through your participation in that kind of stuff?
I think victim awareness talked about like a ripple effect, and how a ripple effect doesn't just cause harm to the actual victims itself. It's an actual effect to the whole society, your community, your family, your child. It just continues to keep going on, and it's based off a decision. And that decision, and whether you act impulsively, you can really have a lot of effect on people. In my case, it was a negative ripple effect in the beginning, and I thought about the positive ripple effect I wanted to have on people. And you really gotta walk the walk and talk the talk in order for you to get the things that you want out of life. You can't just say one thing and go do another, because who's going to believe you? I was faced with 2 decisions in the beginning. I caught an assault charge, and that's what sent me to Lucasville. Shortly before my judicial release, maybe a year leading up to that, I was put in the same situation. Someone stole something from me. And prison is like some of the things you see on TV, and then in some ways it's not. But it's like, wow. And I knew the guy who did it. It's like, well, how were you going to react? This was the same test that I had in the beginning, but I'm having it now. And I was 26 or 27 when I first got tested. I failed that test. I could have caught more time for that. The second time, I didn't react like that. I wanted to. Because you feel as a man, well, I got to defend myself, but it wasn't about that. That was for me to see if I was ready to go back to society.
Wow.
And I had someone, speak to me, and he was in there doing a 20 to life sentence. Someone had broken his house. And he basically just broke it down to me. He regret what he had did. That person that broke in his house cost him the rest of his life. And he said, well, what if you hired somebody over to your house to do some type of flooring or something for you? And while you were on vacation, you see this guy on your camera stealing your stuff. He said, what you going to do when you come back? You're going to go over his house? You're going to beat him? You're going to shoot him? Because this is exactly what just happened, but this was happening in prison. And it really was profound. I'm like, wow. So I left it alone. And I said, it's not for me to always try to get some type of retribution because something was done to me. And I say, you got to just move forward with things because some things in life, it just happens like that. I knew that was an indicator right there, like I wasn't who I was anymore. So that was one of the tests, but that had a lot to do. Me working that program, those was part of the pieces. Yeah.
And so, and I'll throw it over to Jermaine here in a second, but I'll just remark to say, you had this exact same test. I mean, I love the symmetry in that, right? And so that's like a kind of a eureka moment in a sense that you realize you are ready for the next part of your life, which you believe to be should be outside, back in the community, back with your family. And so can you talk to us about, and Jermaine, if you have anything else on the subject, I'm happy to hear it first, but can you talk to us about when you started to pursue judicial release, when you made the decision, you contacted the firm, how did that go? And take us through that story. Unless, Jermaine, do you have any other?
Yes, if I may, please. What I would like to say is the reason we bring this educational initiative and projects like this, because the reason I invited Eric on, like I said, he was my neighbor. I was doing 25 years, and he was doing 25 years. And when I met him, it ain't that he impressed me with his conduct as a man, but what I want to ask you just watching this is, what we didn't cover, Eric, if you don't mind, was your initial charges. Can I cover it a little bit?
Yeah, go ahead, sure.
He was in there for a string of robberies. So what I want to tell you is, it's a myth in prison that if you got violent crimes, you can't get judicial release. That's not true. I knew Eric as a man, and what I want to speak to everybody and say, come home a man, not a convict. So when I met him and was talking to him, I understood that I was dealing with a man. He was a stand-up man, pure gentleman, but all the way man. So he had his routine, I had mine, but the purpose of this program today is to show you that my purpose was to show you that please conduct yourself accordingly, because no matter your past, it don't have to dictate your future. He literally had a string of robberies. Like, I knew Eric, the gentleman, but when he called the law firm for the first time, I had to look up his crimes and say, "What? Who is this?" It was Eric when he was 20-something. So that's what I wanted to say. And the other tip is, because I was so impressed with Eric, being a gentleman and stood before me, the smart, college-educated guy that wanted a chance to go home to his family, I said, Mr. Norman, this is a way we can let the judge see him. And Eric made that, because I said, Eric, paper don't serve you well. We arranged it where he could video for the court live, and that judge said, bring him here and test him out. And I loved it. It was crazy. It was just an idea, but with Eric, I said, Eric ain't who you looking at on that paper. I knew him because I knew him personally, so I'm gonna leave it at that and leave it back to you.
That's a really important point. And for those who have long sentences because they have violent crimes or because they have really crimes that get you a lot of time, you might think that you're just doomed to that fate. But I think Eric is evidence. And what he had to do first is realize that he's worth it, and in doing so, get the courage to ask for the judicial release, because some people don't even ask. I mean, if you're not going to live your life in a way where you're even going to ask for early release, then you can't get it. But if you live in such an excellent, high quality way like Eric did, the next logical step is going to drive you towards asking for it because you know you're the person who should be outside. So maybe could you take us through the decision to pursue judicial release, the timing of it, your interaction with the firm, how that process went, and then we'll walk it right up to when you kind of heard that you were going to get a hearing.
Okay, so I knew once I already achieved my bachelor's degree that I was about to try to pursue judicial release. I didn't know who. And I called a couple of lawyers, and the energy just wasn't there. They didn't ask the questions that I needed them to hear. They didn't ask, well, what county you from? Like, some of them just set a price, and I said that wasn't enough. I needed somebody to ask who I was, who was my judge, what county I came from. That let me know, well, okay, well, they're going to look into this, and then they're going to get back at me. So based off of that, I didn't go that route, and a lot of people. And then I was talking to a gentleman there, and I seen him with the news settler, the You in the Law news settler. And I said, what you doing? He said, I'm about to get ready to file my judicial release. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, man, you probably know Zod. I'm like, Zod. He showed me. I said, yeah. I said, man, I know him. I said, so he had me the packet. And I get to reading over it. I say, he's like, you get out, you go ahead and message him. He'll jump right on your getting out app. So I messaged him and so forth, and that started the ball. When I spoke to him, the first thing he did, he asked me, what I was in there for, looked up the cases right then and there, and basically that was it. That right there, that moment. And I think those connections, it means a lot. Because maybe it would have been somebody else on that pack and maybe I wouldn't have picked it up. So it really, 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 really hit home. And, yeah.
So you decide to pursue it. You work with the firm, and you get us all the things we've been asking for. We file it, and then we're told that you're going to get a hearing, and we pass that information on. And we told you also that that's a huge step forward. I mean, it's not a final step, but it's a huge step forward. So can you tell us how that felt? I mean, I'm sure you could go on for days, but maybe just give us a brief sense of what that was like, the mix of, anxious waiting and hope and fear and like all the stuff that might be coursing through your veins at that time?
So it was anxiousness, but at the same time, it was hope that I had. Because when I started the sentence, if a person had 10 years or more, you couldn't even get an early release. But the laws had changed. And I said, yeah, I got to grab it. I got to take this opportunity. So I remember I didn't even check my tablet that much that day. I think I came back from dinner and I go check my tablet. And it was Jermaine reaching out to me, telling me to call the office, basically saying that I had a court day and I called the office and I'm speaking to you on the phone. And I was it took me back to those 17 years ago when I was in that courtroom and I was just in shock on how much time he gave me. I was in shock that this was about to happen. I knew it wasn't guaranteed, but I said, if I got a shot to get in front of this judge, 9 times out of 10, this is going to happen. And I don't know if you recall, I was kind of lost for words. And Jermaine said, give me the phone. He said, hey, man, you about to get up out of here, man. He was like, man, you just be yourself. And then it clicked. And then, because you asked me, did I have any questions? Then all the questions that I started to ask, I was like, well, do I need to have somebody to speak? Do I need to speak? And he's like, yes. And here I am right now. Yeah.
And I think it was very helpful. Your family came, just a beautiful family, mother and sisters and extended family even. I'm sure they could have had even more. They had volunteered to speak, and I told them what I tell most people. If the judge gives me a wink and a nod that he's heard enough and we're already past the finish line, then we just shut everything off just in case, never want to risk anything just going a little bit sideways. And so, we come to the hearing, and the judge is giving you a chance to talk and address him. And, finally he gives you the word. He starts talking to you. I'm sure at some point you recognize that this is now happening. You are on the roller coaster. You know where it ends. So maybe take us through the emotions of that moment before we get to maybe your plans for how you're going to use this time. Maybe just take us through that moment of victory.
I was taken back. I was taken back because I prepared a speech, and that's the way I've always been. I'll prepare for something. If I got something big, I'm gonna prepare because I don't want to go in a room and I'm not prepared. And I didn't have that speech to lean on, something that I practiced, so it just had to come straight from me. And it was there. So I just basically told him my story, and he was impressed by who I became and not who I once was. And it was just, I was just elated. I remember when being escorted out the courtroom, I was so happy that I couldn't recognize all the faces in the back. The person who stood out the most, I seen my daughter and I seen Jermaine. And he smiled at me. My daughter was just glowing. And it was like that when I caught that time too, because I was just so taken back. I don't know who came or not. And it was just a sense of happiness though. And it's like, it's over with. And I'm about to get out of here. I'm about to see my daughter that I have never seen in the free world, seen her in prison, but it was just so different. And just all these thoughts just got to going through my head. And, I was very emotional. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you, it is also a really emotional time for the team. We put a lot of work into it, obviously, and Jermaine was there in person, and we have to go through a lot of really difficult times with clients, right? We're criminal defense firm here, and to be able to be on the other side of a joyful outcome is really something, and it really restores the spirit, I think, as we go through it. The last thing is, Jermaine always sets such a great example for anybody watching in terms of what are you going to do when you get out? Because, Jermaine's aiming at this great big legacy of helping other people and helping other people who are in his position have a real strong bridge to a better future. And Eric and Jermaine, I'd like you to maybe end here, but so you have this second chance, this 8 years that was taken away and is now returned. Jermaine, you served every day, but you now have that behind you,
hundreds of people,
and you're able to start again in life, and you just have this beautiful light disposition where you want to be helping people, and you're not gonna use the fact that you had to do this time as like bitter resentment to be upset. You're just out here light in the world. Eric, if you want to take us through that, and Jermaine, if you have any thoughts afterwards about, okay, you've got this second chance, like what are your thoughts on that? How do you meditate on that? And also, like, what do you plan to do with it that you were given this chance?
Okay, well, recently I went to a job fair, and I didn't know so many opportunities was open for me doing so much time for the type of crimes that I had. I'm able to be a PO for juveniles. And at one time, I was that kid that was across the table, and I was reporting to a PO. Me being able to connect through those type of things, I realized like our purpose in human beings is not to destroy, but it's to build. And you have to build something that's going to be your legacy. And my build has to deal with me going through incarceration from the time I was 13 years old up until now. So I got to help other people. I think I'm on this probably start that way. I got multiple different avenues that I can take by going there. I've seen where I can actually help adults, but I'm really more geared towards trying to help children, because I feel like they have a better chance of stopping them before they go to the adult system. And I don't feel like the juvenile justice system is how it once was, as far as the opportunities that they afford them to be able to try to change their life. And somebody like me coming to speak to them, or possibly being a PO, and showing them this isn't the path that you want to go down, explaining to them, like, majority of my friends, they're either dead or in prison, they're not getting out of jail, they're not coming back alive. And I'm here to stand as a witness to, like, yeah, you can do better with your life, and you got somebody who actually cares about you.
Wow, that's really powerful testimony. Jermaine, do you have any thoughts on that matter in terms of, talking to these men, who our audience is,
Yes.
When you get out, there's a future for you, and we need the help out here.
Okay, what I want to say on that is the reason I started this initiative, and I got lucky. I want to say, yes, this is you in the law, but this is a team. This is the law officers of Will Dorman, the law officers of Royce Johnson are coming, and this is me, Jermaine Levy, trying to do an educational initiative, because if you educate yourself, you can become a better person. I met a lot of good men in prison, and And it lets me know there are probably a lot of good mothers. Life don't end with the conviction. It's actually the next step to try and help yourself, but most of us don't know. So this whole project is to educate you. And the reason I got Eric here today is because I want him to show you that there is hope. So please take advantage of every opportunity we throw in your way. It's an educational initiative. It's not a legal clinic. Mr. Norman owns his own law firm, and he supports us and helps us because he cares too. Roy's the same way. They have all the opportunities in the world, but they chose to help me do this, so I'm thankful. So what I want to say is, please, I'm finna put a law course on there for free for you. It's going to be in English and Spanish. It's a weekly newsletter. Take advantage of it. Learn, because one day your freedom opportunity will come, and I want you to be ready for it. Don't take the time and go to sleep. So I want to say thank you. It was a pleasure knowing you. Like when he called, I pulled Mr. Norman and Royce aside. I said, this guy is different, man. Like Mr. Norman commends me, but Eric was who I looked up to. I mean, yes, Eric. And when I say looked up to, it was like, this guy's awesome. This is the guy. I want to see what happened with him.
Got his stuff together.
He had his stuff together. He was the college dude. Like all he did was study. My history is bad too. I had 25 years because I got convicted of organized crime, drug dealing, hitting witnesses, trying to escape, everything. But that's why I say I even got a judicial release hearing myself, but the lawyer I had at that time blew it. So I brought Eric here today to actually give hope to the people. Don't think you have to be the squeakiest guy in the world. As a man, get yourself together, change, grow, and try every opportunity available.
Eric, do you have any final thoughts to leave our audience with?
You put the work in, and what's going to come out of it is good results.
And I'll just say, personally here to sign off, I'm always really heartened by being able to obviously reflect on Jermaine's story, but also obviously seeing Eric today. These are people that when they plug back into the community, when they're sitting across from a juvenile, they're sitting across to a young man who's at a difficult point in their lives, instead of seeing, some thug or some jerk, they're looking back and they're seeing themselves at a time where they were facing a crossroad, and they're going to have the compassion and, the empathy to be able to really, I think, make connections with these types of individuals in really difficult spots. And if you can take one 13-year-old who, comes to you as, on PO, and you can say, look, I was on your road. I went down your road. Take a detour. This ain't the road you want to be on. If you could do it once, if you could do it 10 times, that has the ripple effect. The other side of the victim ripple effect is, each one that you save, right? Each one reaches another one. And all of a sudden you have all these positive ripple effects. So, part of what we're trying to do is whenever you get out, if you get out early or if you get out late, that when you get out, you're someone who, when we plug you back into the community, you have these positive ripple effects through your families, your communities. And that's how we can start rebuilding the country. We take this high quality excellence that we have and we have them locked up in a box. But when they get out, they can be forces for good. And so I'm really proud to be a part of that. I thank you very much, Eric, for sharing your story with us today. My co-hosts, Jermaine and Royce, thank you very much for your participation. This has been another episode of You in the Law. Please take advantage of all the resources that we're putting together for you, because however you use them, however you improve yourself, it will pay dividends down the line, and these men, are walking proof. So thank you very much, and until next time.
All right.